Drinking left-handed is hard. Guys, we've talked a lot over the last few days about the rumored Galaxy S25 Slim device, but today we're going to hone in on what, I guess should be the primary feature of this device, the slimness, because we do actually have measurements of this device. And we're going to get visual here because it's one thing to simply look at these measurements and they're right there on your screen in millimeters. You can look at that, but you can't really understand what it means until you can see it. Optimally, you won't really know until you actually have it in your hands, but seeing it is one step better than just looking at numbers. So what I did is I took these numbers and I plugged them into a website called comparesizes.com. I've actually got this embedded on my website here, so you can just kind of play with it yourself. But for the purposes of this video, we need to have it a little bit larger than this. So we're going to go to their full web page, and as you can see here, this is color coded. We have red being the S25, green, I typed it incorrectly, is the S25 Plus, blue is the S25 Ultra, and yellow is the S25 Slim. So we need to zoom in on this, and I think that a lot of you are probably going to have the same sort of first reaction that I had. When you look at this and you look at the yellow versus the other ones, does it seem wildly slimmer, wildly thinner than the rest? We're talking about a couple of millimeters thinner than the S25 Ultra, 6.4 millimeters versus 8.2. Doesn't sound like a lot, and when you look at it, it doesn't really look like a lot either. Now, it's important to keep in mind all of these devices do have camera bumps that are not being included in these measurements, but nonetheless, I don't personally see some radically thin device here. And like I mentioned in my article, there are rumors that the iPhone 17 Air could be a lot thinner than this. Forbes is actually reporting that the thinnest part of this Air version of the iPhone 17 could be 5.5 millimeters. That is absolutely insane. In fact, let's grab the dimensions of the S25 Slim, paste them back in up here, and change the thickness to 5.5 millimeters. And I'm going to type in iPhone Air question mark. Obviously, the other dimensions are going to be completely made up, but you can see the thickness there. And if you zoom in on this, and you start to compare the teal to the dark blue, okay, that is starting to look like a fairly substantial difference. Just so you can see this a bit more clearly, we've gotten rid of the S25 Slim, and look at this iPhone Air. If it is indeed 5.5 millimeters, that is a slim device. That is an Air device. I would say that that is a difference that might actually justify the existence of the device. So what we have here with this S25 Slim is a device that is for sure slimmer than the others, but not so slim that you look at it and think, oh, that's the point of this device. It has specs that are close to the S25 Ultra, right? If we jump back over to this page here, we have probably a 6.7 to 6.8 inch screen, the same primary camera, the 50 megapixel ultra wide at 50 megapixel 3.5x telephoto. Like, it's close to the Ultra, but it's not all the way to the Ultra. It doesn't have the 5x optical zoom, and of course it doesn't have the S Pen. You're not putting the S Pen in a device that is thinner than the S25 Ultra. It's probably going to have a smaller battery than the Ultra as well. It basically slots in right in between the Plus and the Ultra, while again, not being so slim that its existence is obviously justified. And if I'm being honest, simply being slim probably doesn't justify its existence to me regardless, unless you go to like a crazy extent, and this is basically just Samsung saying, look at what we can do. Sometimes you see companies make products like this where they don't expect to sell many of them, but it's just to showcase what they're capable of. Maybe it could be something kind of like that. But I do also want to point out something else. It is a device that has not been formally announced. So sitting here and speculating, like, what's it going to be like, is always a little bit of a strange thing to do. It's fun, but you're likely to be wrong about some things. But we got this tweet from Evan Blass, and if EV Leaks says something, it's probably worth listening, even if we are well out in front of the device launch because they just get so much of the stuff right. And this is what they tweeted. If the so-called Galaxy Z Fold 6 Slim turned out to be neither branded as such nor remarkably thin, why are you expecting the, again so-called, Galaxy S25 Slim to be different? One thing I will say about this model, whatever it ends up being called, it will almost certainly not be offered through US carriers. In the markets where it is offered, expected to be positioned between the S25 Plus and the Ultra, marketing and price-wise. This is very interesting and I think is very revealing. Over the last few days, the more I've been thinking about this device, the less sense it is making to me. In the scope of their other devices, where you have the Standard, the Plus, and the Ultra, where this thing fits in and why it exists just doesn't seem all that clear to me. I think that instinctively, we all just kind of assumed this is going to be the answer to this iPhone 17 Air. I'm not super plugged into the Apple world, but I guess this thing is going to exist, and if these rumors are true, it's going to be exceptionally thin. You guys remember when they pulled the MacBook Air out of that like manila folder and everybody's like brain melted because it was so thin? I think that they're trying to do something like that again with a phone. I don't know why you want a phone that's that thin, but I digress. I think that instinctively we all expected this slim model to be kind of like that. But the more we look at it, the less it looks like that's what it is. To make matters even more confusing, the in-between models don't sell well. The S23 Plus sold the fewest. The S24 Plus sold a little bit better, but still sold the fewest. People tend to either grab the cheap model or the Ultra model. So now we're going to slide in another in-between model. Why? Is it so that, you know, maybe we can drum up some excitement for the tweener models? Maybe they think that the Plus variant is just too boring. It's basically the Standard, but a little bit bigger. So maybe this thing's a bit more exciting because it's closer to the Ultra. But if that's true, aren't the Plus sales just going to go down even more potentially? And if it's priced higher, closer to the Ultra, maybe the Ultra is just going to suffer. Maybe you're going to cannibalize sales that way. It seems to me like maybe you just don't need a fourth phone in this lineup. Maybe 3 is all you can sustain. Again, like EV Leak said, though, maybe this is something that isn't going to be pushed a ton through carriers. Maybe it's going to be limited in region. I think that that makes sense. I think that this is going to be just a cool sort of showcase device that isn't going to be as big of a deal as I think some people were thinking it was going to be. This is not going to be Apple's answer to this rumored iPhone 17 Air. I think we just kind of have to get that into our heads, that nothing about these rumors indicate to me that that's going to be the case. Obviously, there's just a ton of stuff that we just don't know. We're going to see the S25 line of devices announced on January the 22nd. We may or may not see this slim model shown there. It's rumored to launch closer to May later on in the year. So what this device is going to truly be, how it's going to be marketed, what the big deal about it is going to be, definitely hard to say. But from looking at this imagery here, I just can't look at it and think it's the slimness. There has to be some other shtick to this thing, or they better be hoping or expecting to not sell that many of them, like the Z Fold Special Edition. Maybe this is a very, very similar situation to that. Some people thought that was going to be a Z Fold Slim. It wasn't. Maybe this is a very, very similar situation. Limited regions, limited numbers. Why they're making it, I have no idea. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.